Just last week, on September 10th, Charlie Kirk, an American conservative political activist, was fatally shot while addressing an audience on the campus of Utah Valley University.
Charlie Kirk has been shot.
Charlie Kirk has been shot at an event in Utah.
Charlie Kirk was shot at an event on a college campus in Utah.
Kirk was actually shot in the neck.
The outdoor event was the first stop on his speaking and debate tour organized by Turning Point USA, a conservative organization that he co-founded. From a social psychological standpoint, what happened in the days following this shocking and tragic event is fascinating. His videos on social media are now being shared more than ever before, and Turning Point USA reportedly received over 32,000 requests to start new chapters. The reason for this is that while social media is arguing over politics, there are 4 researched and powerful psychological principles that are dictating the ripple effect of the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Hey everyone, welcome to the Behavioral Arts. My name is Spidey and I use my degree in sociology and psychology, my certifications in criminal interrogation and body language analysis, and over 10 years experience as an award-winning mentalist to teach people behavioral analysis and practical psychology on stages and television shows all over the world. This video is going to be a little bit different from the videos we normally look at on the channel, because we're not going to be looking at the behaviors of an individual, we're going to be looking at behavioral trends and 4 powerful psychological principles that are taking effect right now all over the world as a direct result of what happened to Charlie Kirk. Using research and case studies, I will show you how these 4 principles interact in day-to-day life and how violence or even just aggression often don't hurt a movement, they make it stronger. Understanding how these principles work can play a critical role in knowing when your decisions or the decisions of those around you are being influenced. And this applies to every aspect of life: parenting, work, relationships, all of it. To understand these 4 principles, we're going to look at how last week's tragic event affected 4 different groups in society. The first group is Charlie Kirk's biggest supporters, those who were closest to him. The second group is anyone who more or less aligned with his beliefs, but were not directly a supporter of him as a person. The third group are the ones who are on the fence, those who are neither supporters nor critics of Charlie Kirk. And finally, the fourth group are the critics, the ones who do not support his cause and do not agree with the things that he says. So let's start with his closest supporters, family, and friends. In 1959, psychology researchers Aronson and Mills discovered something fascinating. In their study, they invited groups of women to attend a seminar about sexuality, but the price of entry was different for different groups of women. Some of them had to spend a lot of time reading really embarrassing and explicit content in front of a group, undergoing social embarrassment, and then another group didn't have to do that at all. They were just let in. Now here's the secret about this seminar. It was purposely useless. It was not informative, it was not interesting, it was objectively bad. After the seminar, the groups of women were asked if this was an educational experience, if there was any value. Of course, the ones who were let in for free very openly admit that it was a waste of time and they learned nothing. What's fascinating though is what happened to the group who went through a harsh, embarrassing initiation. They associated a lot more value to the seminar and rated it as much more educational and much more valuable. The reason for this is simple. Their mind had to justify the fact that they went through this embarrassing initiation process to get to this content. You see, our brain doesn't like inconsistency and it doesn't like to suffer for nothing. So in order for it to justify to itself why it went through that, it has to associate more value to the seminar than what it's actually worth. This principle came to be known in social psychology as effort justification, and it's really simple. Anytime we suffer or lose for a cause, our perceived value of that cause increases exponentially. And we see this in the real world all the time. In fraternity or sorority hazing initiations, in military boot camps, even in tribal rituals. The harsher the price of entry, the more passionately we cling to the cause or the group. And this is also very closely related to another principle in psychology called the sunk cost fallacy. The idea that if we invest time, resources, or emotions into something, our perceived value of that thing goes way up. Like for example, people who stay in a toxic relationship for way too long because they've already invested a lot of time. Or people who see their business as much more valuable because of all the money that they've poured into it. Or even sometimes how we stay on hold with customer service for a very long time because we already invested a whole bunch of time into waiting. Now I want you to think back to that study with the women attending the seminar. And imagine, instead of reading some embarrassing passages, if they lost someone that they care for deeply. What would that do to the perceived value of the seminar? See, in the case of Charlie Kirk, to even begin to balance out the great loss that they've suffered, his closest supporters, his family, his friends, have to multiply the belief in a cause that they already passionately believed in, a cause that he gave his life for. This is why in her speech following his death, his wife Erica Kirk put a lot of focus on this mission, on this cause, and how she's gonna work tirelessly to make it the biggest thing in America.
I'll make Turning Point USA the biggest thing that this nation has ever seen.
This cause, this mission, is what she got in exchange for her husband's life. It has to be extremely valuable in order for the brain to even begin to accept that trade-off. Okay, so effort justification can explain why his biggest fans are now doubling down, and we're seeing this all over social media. But what about those who weren't necessarily fans of Kirk himself, but broadly aligned with his views? To understand what's happening there, we have to go back to another event that is engraved in the heart of every American, September 11th, 2001, one of the most tragic and unforgettable events in US history. A little known fact is that immediately after, and as a direct result of the Twin Towers coming down, something else went up, way up. And that thing is the approval rating of George W. Bush, the President of the United States at the time. And it didn't just go up a little bit, it skyrocketed to a record-breaking 90%. And this was across the board from both Republicans and Democrats. But why did this happen? You see, there's a lot of research that has shown that in the presence of a great threat, we put aside smaller differences and rally together. In other words, on that day, there were not Republicans and Democrats, there were only Americans. This is a principle that in political science is called the rally round the flag effect. Now, in the case of Charlie Kirk, it's obviously a little different because he is not the leader of the country, he is a strong voice in the conservative movement. So anybody who's even broadly aligned with that side, and even some people who are on the fence, will see this as an attack on their identity and might bridge gaps and unify, come closer together as a result of this threat. And I'm sure we have all seen this very vividly manifest on social media. There are content creators, influencers, or even just contacts that we have who were never really big supporters of Charlie Kirk, who are now very actively sharing his material and unifying. That is exactly the rally round the flag effect. Next up, we have the fence sitters, those who really weren't certain how they feel about Charlie Kirk. They neither actively supported him nor actively opposed him. And this is where our third principle comes in, and it's called reactance theory. This is the idea that when we feel that a choice or our freedom of a choice is removed, we fight for that choice more actively. We see this in rebellious teens all the time. When an authority figure tells them they can't do something, they want to do exactly that thing. We also see it in marketing all the time. Think of any time you see limited time offer or while supplies last. Because we feel that that choice is being removed, we are more attracted to it. This is also in social psychology called the scarcity principle. And we see this in politics all the time. When violence or aggression tries to restrict what someone's allowed to believe in, very often people instinctively resist. It's like a form of rebellion. In this case, even if they weren't pro-Kirk before this happened, the fact that he is aggressively and violently trying to be silenced will make them speak up for his right to be heard, and as a consequence, result in more sympathy towards his cause. And finally, we have the most surprising group, his critics and political opponents. Now, of course, for a portion of these individuals, nothing's going to change. They're locked in with their convictions, and that's totally normal. However, for a portion of those people, research has shown that violence can sometimes create sympathy in people who have historically strongly disagreed with a person. And this is called the boomerang or backfire effect. We've seen this before historically with journalists who were attacked or assassinated, and people who never read their work before rally and support them for the freedom of press. We've seen this before with artists who were censored or attacked, and people who are actually critics of their work get behind them and support them and their right to create. And we especially see this a lot in times of war. When civilian casualties start to rise, people gain a lot of sympathy for sides that they once opposed. In the case of Charlie Kirk, you might have people who go, I didn't really agree with what he said, but I agree with violence even less. And that instinctive recoil, that rejection of the concept of violence, could turn into sympathy and sometimes even agreement. There's a very, very common manifestation of this backfire principle in day-to-day life that a lot of you are going to be very familiar with. And once I explain it, you're going to go, oh my God, yes, I've experienced this before. And it involves anyone who has someone in their social circle or in their family that is either very stubborn or hard-headed or opinionated or narcissistic. And every now and then what will happen is that person will say that they didn't like something, whether it's a restaurant or a movie or a book or whatever. And only to fight the stubbornness, we might go, oh, you know what, I actually thought it was pretty great. Not because we like the thing, but because we dislike the stubbornness way more than we have any opinions on the thing itself. Let me know in the comments if you have experiences like this. I know a lot of you are gonna go, oh my God, yes, I've done that before, I felt that way before. And it's the same thing here. It's not that the person suddenly loves the things that Charlie Kirk said, but it's that they dislike the violence way more than they disagree with some of the things he said. And in some cases, that can make them sympathetic towards him and sometimes even towards some of the things he said. Now, of course, again, this will not apply to every single person who opposed him or disagreed with him. A lot of people are going to stand very firm in their convictions. Now, here's the absolutely crazy thing. On social media, all these principles interact together and they are multiplied to massive degrees. So for example, you can have someone who historically disagreed with Charlie Kirk, but really disagrees with violence. So because of the backfire effect, they might make a post saying, you know, I do not condone violence, and my heart goes out to his family. But they get some backlash from their social circle for saying something like that. Now, reactance theory kicks in. They go, now hold on a minute, don't tell me how to feel about this, and they start becoming a little bit more sympathetic, and now all of a sudden, effort justification makes an appearance, because the person got into arguments, or maybe even lost a couple of friends over this, so to justify that loss, they have to see even more value in the thing that they were defending, which is Charlie Kirk. So they might watch a couple of videos and all of a sudden, notice a couple of things that they agree with, and we start to see these shifts happening. So when we put it all together, we have a cascade of psychological effects. You have effort justification that's making his already existing supporters cling much tighter. Rally around the flag effect unites the broader movement and brings everyone closer together. Reactance theory gives the fence sitters a little bit of a push because they don't want to be told what not to believe in. And finally, we have the backfire effect, which can soften even flat out opponents. And the result is that violence and aggression doesn't soften or mute a movement, it very often amplifies it. And this is exactly why his videos are going more viral than they ever have, and why Turning Point USA has had a massive surge of requests for new chapters. In conclusion, I think that being aware of these principles is something that can really help us understand when things on social media start to get heated and people start to get really polarized, what is going on. A lot of these principles explain that. And not just on social media, in our day-to-day lives as well. In parenting, sometimes trying to aggressively remove an option only makes it more tempting. Or in relationships, you might notice that you or someone you care about is staying in a relationship for much longer than they should because the time that they invested into it is making them see the relationship as more valuable, which is called effort justification or sunk cost fallacy. Or maybe in business, there's some little differences or some little arguments within a group, but to bring them all together, you can present a bigger challenge or a bigger threat that affects the entire organization, using the rallying around the flag effect in a positive way. I hope that with this video, you saw just how these 4 powerful psychological principles influence the decisions that we make in day-to-day life and some of the behaviors that we see on social media, and how they show that violence is not just stupid, but completely counterproductive, because in a lot of cases, it'll have the exact opposite effect that the person intended. With that said, let me know in the comments which of these principles you connected with the most and have seen it manifest, whether it's on social media or in your day-to-day life. Let me know in the comments, and I will see you on the next one.